We're jumping now to another part of the world experiencing disastrous flooding. A look at the swamping in Santiago, Chile, as well as nearby towns. Heavy rains have also triggered a landslide that killed at least one person. The floodwaters have ruined shopping malls, homes, and parking garages. Now, for those that haven't been evacuated to higher ground, they're still facing really big problems. Water service has been cut for 4.5 million people because the water's not safe to drink. People are being told to be sparing with the clean water that they do have. And the other obstacle, power outages. It's being reported that at least 80,000 people still don't have power.
According to the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center, the latest tremor rattled 70 kilometers off the Pacific coast town Esmeraldas, not far from the epicenter of the magnitude 7.8 earthquake on Saturday. There were no immediate reports of major damage. Ecuador's government says the death toll from Saturday's quake in the northern country has risen to at least 499. About 4,000 people were injured and 1,700 more remain missing. By Tuesday, much of the province of Manabí had remained without energy, water, and telecommunications.
The nation's fourth largest city is struggling with deadly widespread flooding triggered by historical rainfall. More water rescues are underway in Houston this morning, even as floodwaters recede.
5 people died yesterday in southeast Texas. Nearly 1.5 feet of rain reportedly fell just west of Houston. More wet weather is in the forecast. Texas and nearby states face possible flash flooding through Thursday. Omar Villafranca is in Houston, where people are racing to escape rushing water. Omar, good morning.
Good morning. Some scary moments in northwest Houston when rescue crews had to use boats to get residents out of an apartment complex. You can see some of the residents are here, some older folks here. They were able to grab basically just a few things, some clothes that they could wear today, rescue a few pets. This is all runoff from yesterday's record rainfall. The amount of rain, historic. The rescue attempts, dramatic. Streets became waterways, littered with people holding only what they could carry in their arms, and entire neighborhoods swallowed by rising waters.
We panicked. I mean, we have a 2-week-old, but the water keeps rising, and it was unsafe for them, and it's terrifying, especially if you can't swim.
First responders worked around the clock in boats and even jet skis, saving children and seniors and pets.
Bring it through, bring it through.
Rescuers dove into neck-high water to save livestock from drowning. People escaped to safety any way they could, on air mattresses, in empty container bins, even inside refrigerators. Texas Governor Greg Abbott.
Please remember the easy phrase, turn around, don't drown. Stay out of the rising water.
Ain't seen anything like this before?
Well, the last time it got like this in this area was Allison. The water line, it came up to right here. This is as far as it came in.
You had about 1 foot of water in your place.
About 1 foot of water, yeah.
This is the largest flood event to hit the Houston area since Tropical Storm Allison in 2001, where 23 were killed in Texas alone. Engineer Sunita Singh drowned as floodwaters overtook her while inside her car. Her husband Raji says his heart is broken.
Okay, cancer, this heart problem, all that I understand. But this,
driving to high water in the middle of the city and there's nothing that could be done. It's a terrible loss for me, for everybody.
Many schools in the Houston area are closed today as cleanup gets underway, but there is more rain in the forecast. Gail?
That's the last thing they need. Thank you very much, Omar.
Hottest year on record globally. An in-depth analysis you're looking at from our partners at Climate Central of this year's temperatures so far. Well, it shows some bad news. It shows that the world has actually already warmed to the limit that the Paris Agreement aims for. Now, lots of people are talking about climate change on Earth Day. We dug into the data, and get this, Texas has actually warmed up nearly 2.5 degrees just since the first Earth Day back in 1970. And we're really pleased to have this man joining us this morning from Washington, D.C., a very smart gentleman, former director of the physics department at MIT and current U.S. Secretary of Energy. Good morning to you, Dr. Ernest Moniz.
Good morning, and it is indeed a great day.
Absolutely. Now, Dr. Moniz, the U.S. is one of the top polluting countries in the world, which makes global temperatures heat up. What, if anything, is the U.S. doing to change that?
Well, first of all, the president put forward, and we are executing an ambitious climate action plan that was put forward in 2013. It has many components on the efficiency side, on the generation side. We are executing that because these all use existing authorities. And of course, in the longer term, we hope that Congress and future administrations will be able to also supplement this with a legislative solution. But right now, we're making good progress.
Well, that's good to hear. And climate change here in Texas is really important because we don't need to get any hotter, especially during our summers, which can be really brutal sometimes. How is this going to impact us, the changing climate, right here in Austin?
Well, first of all, I think, as you've said, you've seen much warmer weather, but I think you've also seen one of the expectations of a warming world, which is more extreme weather. I think now you're talking about all the rain. It wasn't long ago that you were talking about extreme drought. And unfortunately, these kinds of extremes with regard to water resources are one of the predictions. But there are many others. In the western United States in general, for example, we are seeing the migration of insects that are attacking our forests in the coastal areas of the United States, which of course does include Texas. Sea level rise leads to amplification of the impacts of major storms. So these are the patterns that were expected decades ago. It's critical that we work to limit our greenhouse gas emissions, limit any further temperature rise, and at the same time face the facts that we will have to adapt to some of the effects of global warming.
The country is reeling from severe water shortages, and desperately poor farmers are suffering crop losses. The figures were announced by one of the government's most senior lawyers. He said that about a quarter of the country's population have been hit by drought after 2 consecutive years of weak monsoons. He added that the government had released funds to affected regions. As summer approaches, there are increasing reports of families in remote villages walking long distances to find water. Temperatures have risen earlier than normal, increasing concerns about this year's overall toll.
A child in China was injured after a dust devil swept the youngster up into the air.
A policeman in north-central China said the child was lifted up about 10 feet and then fell back to the ground. Reporters say doctors treated the victim for minor head injuries. Students had assembled for a sports day when the dust devils hit under sunny skies. Witnesses say 3 whirlwinds in all struck the school event. Many of the children laid flat on the ground to protect themselves. State-run media says the first vortex to strike measured between 100 and 130 feet tall.
Check out this mysterious object that is causing a lot of controversy. It could be the oldest stone sphere made by humans. The sphere was discovered buried in a forest in Bosnia. One archaeologist believes the sphere lies atop a 12,000-year-old ruin. Another archaeologist disagrees, saying it could date back only to the Bronze Age or Roman times. A different expert says the object is probably natural and made by geological forces. The sphere is at least 8 feet in diameter, and it's said to contain an extremely high iron content.
It's not clear what caused a deadly explosion at a chemical plant in Mexico. At least 13 people lost their lives. It happened in the eastern state of Veracruz. CCTV's Martin Markovits has more.
It was a blast that was so strong, people felt it 7 miles away. The explosion at a large petrochemical facility in the eastern Mexican state of Veracruz was just the latest deadly incident for the country's state oil company, Pemex. Employee Carlos Ruiz was there when it happened.
All the lights started to go off, and then suddenly there was a boom. We were in front of the explosion. We all left in a panic.
So far, 13 people have been killed, while hundreds were injured in the blast. On Wednesday, Pemex CEO Jose Antonio Gonzalez traveled to the site and told a local television station a leak caused the blast, but it was still unclear why it happened.
This is an accident. I don't want to speculate much more. We know about a leak. This is a vinyl plant.
Meanwhile, the company warned local residents to keep away from the area due to toxic fumes. The oil company has been going through a tough time after the Mexican government started imposing deep cuts due to the global crash in oil prices. Last year, the government began opening the company to private investment. Safety at Pemex has been a major concern for a long time. Earlier this year, 3 workers were killed and 7 injured when a fire broke out on an oil platform in the Gulf of Mexico. While in 2013, 37 people were killed by a blast at Pemex's Mexico City headquarters. Martin Markovits, CCTV, Mexico City.
A chemical storage in East China's Jiangsu province caught fire Friday morning. The fire occurred at 9 a.m. at the storage site. A tank exploded later with a suffocating smell that forced rescuers to retreat from the site. No casualties were reported, and rescuers were still trying to get the blaze under control as of Friday afternoon.
Breivik launched his case in March. Many in Norway reacted with disbelief. Disbelief that a mass murderer could still so openly show disdain for people's rights by performing a Nazi salute. Disbelief that he was bringing a rights case in defense of his own. Breivik accused Norwegian authorities of exposing him to inhumane, degrading treatment in breach of the European Convention on Human Rights. The court ruled in his favor. Norway's Prime Minister says it shows a functioning legal system.
I believe that individuals should enjoy legal protection in Norway and have the opportunity to take their cases to court. We have now shown that we have that.
The court heard how Breivik had spent 22 to 23 hours a day alone in his cell for nearly 5 years. The only visitor he's seen in person has been his mother, but she died in 2013. All other visitors have been separated by a glass wall in what the court described as a completely exaggerated security measure. Breivik is serving Norway's maximum term of 21 years for killing 77 people in twin attacks 5 years ago. He killed 8 people by detonating a bomb in Oslo and went on to gun down 69 others at a gathering on a nearby island. Many of them were teenage members of the then-ruling Labour Party. The right-wing extremist blamed the party for the rise of multiculturalism in Norway.
I don't think of it as Breivik's victory. Rather, I think of it as our victory, as the Norwegian society's victory, if you like, because we today proved that our juridical system has not been blinded by Breivik's hatred. It's not been blinded by his actions. It functions as it should. It's keeping true to the principles that we stood by before 2011 and that we should maintain after 2011.
There'd been some concern that Breivik was using his court appearance as a way of drawing attention to his extremist views. Others maintain that the fact that he was able to bring the case at all was a triumph, proof of a legal system that acknowledges the humanity of all people, including criminals. Banu Bhatnagar,
North
Al
Korea's
Jazeera.
foreign minister has vowed that Pyongyang will counter U.S. nuclear threats with its own nuclear weapons. He also slammed the United States, saying it was plotting to launch a nuclear attack on his country. Park Jong-hong reports.
North Korea has unleashed more hostile rhetoric against the United States. Speaking in New York on Thursday, the regime's top diplomat Lee Soo-yong slammed the U.S. for conducting what he calls nuclear war exercises to attack the North, apparently referring to the annual military drills between the U.S. and South Korea. As a consequence, Lee said his country developing nuclear weapons was inevitable in order to counter the nuclear threat posed by the U.S. The minister made the remarks during a keynote speech at a high-level meeting of the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals at the UN headquarters. Lee claimed Pyongyang tried to have dialogue and made efforts through international law to remove the nuclear threat, but he said it was to no avail. He added North Korea will make sure the U.S. pays the price for hampering the North's sustainable development and urged Washington to immediately end its, quote, hostile policy toward Pyongyang. He also had some harsh words for the United Nations. He strongly protested the UN Security Council sanctions against the North, saying they are a challenge to the country's sustainable development. He vowed that North Korea will never give in to the sanctions. North Korea's foreign minister is in New York for the signing of a historic UN climate agreement set for Friday, local time.
The American commander, who will soon be tasked with countering Kim Jong-un, has a dire new warning. North Korea's missile threat is real. Don't be fooled by a recent missile test that failed.
This is like watching someone ride a bike and falling off of it, but eventually they could become a BMX champion. So we can't underestimate the hazard that is emerging on this.
General Vincent Brooks says Kim and his commanders will be able to fire long-range nuclear-armed missiles, quote, if they're not stopped.
Sanctions have not stopped him. How do you really stop him?
We have to look at their cyber program. We recognize that they have been able to develop one. We have one much better. We can overmatch them rapidly. That's something worth targeting. Secondly, their global concern of essentially black market. They are lacking hard currency. Every embassy, every concern that they have worldwide is focused on trying to bring hard currency home to North Korea. We can interfere with that something fierce.
And there's another option, according to former U.S. military intelligence officer Tony Shaffer, sabotage.
The best approach would be of using special operations forces is to go about sabotaging their technology development as well as creating circumstance for the failure of the tests to set them back further and further.
But that brings the risk of retaliation from the unpredictable North Korean leader. On that front, General Brooks has his own blunt assessment of Kim Jong-un tonight, saying he, quote, appears to be more risk-tolerant, arrogant, and impulsive than his father. Kim is a young man, the general says, who has no voice of reason by his side.
The potential of having anyone who can counterbalance him or provide advice, that potential is going down. It's not evident that he's able to receive advice.
Anybody who seems to disagree with him or offer advice, they get executed, they get purged.
A staggering number of officials in Kim's inner circle have already been taken out. More than 80, according to South Korean intelligence. It's that recklessness that has officials and experts worried.
There may be an accident. There may be a miscalculation. He may fire a missile, pieces of which land on territories where there are populations.
Now, experts say an important understanding that Kim's father and his grandfather had that young Kim does not appear to have is the idea of deterrence, the realization that if North Korea really provokes the U.S. or South Korea, they're going to be hit hard in retaliation. This leader, experts say, either doesn't get that, isn't being told of that danger, or simply doesn't care.